Hey, everybody. Hey, hey, hey. My name is Sydney and I am an alcoholic. Can you hear me okay? Good. Wow. So Jerry knocked it out of the park and it was good to catch some of his share. I see some folks on here I love. Hey, Ron. Hey, Fred. It's so good. Philo, thank you for asking me to share this evening. And as I was just trying to kind of orient myself, come on in from the wind and the heat, and just be with you for a second. Just let me take a moment. I was reading a couple of things, trying to figure out which ones to lead me. And I want to welcome you if you're new, if you're days with us or hours with us, if you're weeks or months with us. Michael, good to see you. I also want to say, if you're with us for years and you're struggling or feeling a bit of suffering, I want to say, welcome. It's so good to have you. There are moments like that in this full collateral exercise called life and sobriety. So this is what I fell upon, and I don't know if this is what we'll talk about, but this is what's guiding me. And it's on page 30 to 31 of the big book, and it says, God, help me to concede to the innermost core of my being that I am a real alcoholic, addict, Al-Anon, broken human being, whatever works for you. That I am a man, woman, person who has lost his, her, their legs. I will never grow new ones. Help me to see in the movie of my mind what I could become, but for your grace. Yeah. You know, there's so many opinions about how this thing works and what we do here, but I want to say to you, my name is Sydney and I am an alcoholic. And I also want to say that, I went to my very first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous when I was 14 years old, parenting that alcoholic woman called my mother, trying to make sure that she could show up and would show up to a meeting. And I baked the cookies and helped her do her commitments and all the things that a kid who has an alcoholic parent does to manage and the home. And that's something pretty important. And I remember swearing that I was never, ever going to be an alcoholic like my mom and dad. It was never going to happen. Don't you love that? As if I would have a chance, right? And don't know if it's nature or nurture, and not here to talk about that. But what I am here to say is, having a home saturated with rage, boredom, and rage, and drunkenness, and hangover, and intoxication, it's no wonder that some of the ways that I learned consciously or unconsciously to get through this world resembled what they were doing. Right. But I love who I was coming into this program, that I thought I could choose by will, by intellectual strength, by awareness, by comparison, that I would not be like them. And that's important to my story, because that thought for many years kept the miracle of the promises of our program from me, because I had to concede to my innermost self, right? I had to really understand that I wasn't going to get ahead of it. I wasn't going to get that college degree and be different from them. I wasn't going to speak those couple of different languages and move thousands of miles to the other side of the world and live there for decades and escape alcoholism, that I wasn't going to somehow meditate in a space of stillness so incredibly still that, I would no longer have this thing called alcoholism, let alone need to attend to it with a daily reprieve. you know. And I have to tell you, for those of you who might be wondering, that's the good news, right? That I don't have to get over this thing, that I don't graduate, that I don't have to accomplish sobriety or recovery, nor alcoholism itself. But what I had to do was concede, give in, surrender, know and understand. Do you guys know the meaning of concede? And I'll jump into my story in a minute. Concede is the exact relationship you have, and I hope I'm not triggering anybody, with the color of your eyes. You're not tripping. You're just using them. Concede. Deep down inside, beyond a kind of self that's always got to tinker with shit. Concede to my innermost self that I am an alcoholic, right? To my innermost core of my being that I am a real alcoholic. And for me, a real alcoholic is, I drink beyond my mental control. I suffer from a phenomenon of craving that once I take one, it takes me. I used to think it was the eighth one with the party favors that took me out. No, it was the first one that took me out. And it took me a minute to get that. See, because I thought because I had stamina, because I had capacity, because I could drink so much and drive home or make it home or drive everyone else home, that I still somehow had a job, that I was losing my jobs, not because of my alcoholism, but because of them, them, right? I didn't know that part of alcoholism was this spiritual malady that really has to do with the dash on, the step one, I'm powerless over alcoholism dash, and my life is unmanageable. And that unmanageability is what I take with me everywhere I go. It is a dis-ease, the disease of alcoholism, right? Restless, irritable, discontent, never ever really finding satisfaction where I am. I remember working so hard, hey, Frederick, to get there, and then get there, and there somehow moves. Do you remember the pain and the frustration living like that? Oh, I'm going to get myself together, get this credential, this degree, lose this weight, get all this cursing out of my mouth. I'm somehow going to arrive at being different, like my sponsor, like my sobriety sister, hang out in this group of AA on, Palisades, PG, Santa Monica, Skid Row. I'm going to go somewhere, find my tribe, get in where I can fit in, and then this burden of having to truly be Sydney and understand that I'm never going to beat the game, that there is some work here to be done on a daily basis to my innermost core, because I'm not going to grow new legs. I'm not going to get those prosthetics that are going to help me run a marathon. I'm not going to be able to work on my upper body weight to such a upper body strength to a degree that I'm going to forget or somehow be appeased. And I'm just staying on this for a moment because this is 0 step, the step before step 1. Am I convinced that I am an alcoholic? My story is I didn't have to go someplace to know I was an alcoholic before I came to you. I already knew that. I saw that when I took one, it took me. I saw that I drank beyond my mental control. I saw that with everything in me, I thought I could only have 8 and leave the party favors alone. Just leave the party favors alone. Just stay with the drinking, Sid. And I could never, ever get it right. I love the ABCs, right? That we were alcoholic and could not manage our lives, that no human power could relieve me of my alcoholism. I'm so glad I came from a group that said, Sid, that human power is you. I'm not going to think my way through it. And here, I'm going to take a turn here for my folks. I'm not going to rage my way through it, self-pity my way through it, spin my story so well. There's this real suffering to be an alcoholic. And I'm staying there because, it feels to me like now in AA, we want to be an alcoholic and something. Being an alcoholic is bad and painful enough, right? And so when I went to Alcoholics Anonymous when I was 14 years old, taking her, and doing all the stuff there, the seed was planted. I saw that you guys really seemed to have a design for living. I saw the light in your eyes. I saw the camaraderie. I saw the freshness of the faces and the way that the men and the women looked. What I really saw more than anything else, even as a kid, was the ease through which you were going through that meeting each other, hanging out, that you seemed to have a purpose. And I remember one of my step guides, Bob Olson, he and I did some work together, and I remember he always used to say, Sid, I have a whole lot of power. None of it is mine. Hey, Lourdes, none of it is mine. It all just courses through me. And he said, if you do this work, if you go through this big book, word by word, line by line, turning statements into questions, you will know a power, peace, and a purpose that will never, ever leave you. And he says, and what most folks won't tell you is that even if by some chance you pick up again, the truth of that will never, ever leave you. And you will be ruined for the rest of your life and ever drinking well or attaining oblivion again. And I'm so grateful for the people who have been in my life, who have taken me through this book and who have shown me the true nature of my disease and the true nature of what it means to be a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's such an incredible, beautiful, miraculous program of healing. It's just so mind-blowing, how we get returned to these right specimens of manhood, these right specimens of womanhood, these right specimens of personhood. It's just the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. So, I started drinking at a really young age, and none of that really matters. I'm sure some of you drank more than I did, and that's cool. I'm sure some of you might have drank less than I did. That's cool too. What my home group let me know is that it doesn't matter how much or how long. What matters is what it did to you and for you. And Alcoholics Anonymous, drinking alcohol made me feel 10 feet tall and bulletproof, and that's all I ever wanted. Made me feel 10 feet tall and bulletproof was to let you know the spiritual malady. I am a power seeker. Power is my problem. The whole thing about me is that if I could manage and time my blackouts, you would have another speaker this evening, right? My story is could not and would not die. I remember when I was young, they used to say to me, Sydney, don't you see what you're doing to yourself? You have so much potential. I remember a woman in AA looked at me one time when I showed up one more time, not so very sober, not so very nice. And she said, Sydney, if I looked like you, I wouldn't have to drink. And I thought, wow, she has no idea what it means to be an alcoholic, right? But this power, this really, really wanting things to be what? My way. If I could just get the world and its people to behave and do what I needed to do, then everything would be okay. And this is another aspect of alcoholism that I just want to talk about and then jump into what happened and what it's like now. I don't know if you've ever realized whatever it is you're suffering with, but this delusion and illusion of alcoholism is really a trip. I'm always messing with it. Trying to dose it, get it right, rolling it, finding it, gonna get it. All of this relationship with the spirit or the drugs or whatever can lead me to believe that I'm choosing and have control over it rather than it has me and I'm completely out of control. And the more that I'm on top of it, the more money that I have to spend on the dope, or the more times that I serve myself just the right drink in the right glass when that was happening, or the more time that I have to get with this group who's going to then, make me think that being messed up in the bathroom, bleeding all over the place from every orifice of my body was I had arrived rather than I was already torn up and blown out then, just gives me this illusion that I'm somehow in the game. And if I think I can beat the game, then choose I must. And it took me a minute to realize that if I have no power, I have no control. If I have no control, I have no choice. These are the three things you need, right, to be able to manage and control your drinking. So what happened for me is that they found me in Miami. I had crawled out from behind a dumpster. I had no underwear. I had been hurting really badly. One earring, one shoe. I had that 80s asymmetrical haircut. And I just remember the shoulder pads and a kind of pink shirt like this. It was pink, turquoise, orange, and kind of like a raspberry color leopard print. And a jean skirt and some, and I was a very, very long way from home. I'm, born and raised in Los Angeles. And I would love to tell you that was the last night I drank, but it's not. I got back to where I lived at that time. And, I just never want to forget this one. Did I call my mother? Did I call the police? Did I change my clothes? Did I take a shower? Did I go to emergency? Did I call a friend? Did I have a good cry? No. I fixed myself a drink and started shaking all those little brown bottles. And that's the most important thing I can tell you, that absolutely let me know beyond words. It was a body understanding, a body wisdom, that there was something absolutely wrong with me. Right? I was out of control. I was out of options. And I think it might have been another 90 days out there. And I remember my last drink was nothing special. I think it might have been a half a bottle of beer, and I hated beer, but I just couldn't get it down anymore. And somehow the airplane took me back to Los Angeles, and my mother, who had been sober for 5 years, took me to the Wednesday night women's meeting, Felicity House, and my life began. And I remember the woman who came up to me first and helped me through the big book. She says, "Hey, Sydney, you're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. We've been waiting for you. Welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous." And I said to her, "Get away from me." And I love that story, not because I'm tough. Those are the only ones I get to sponsor for the most part. So be careful what you are. That's what you get to work with. But the other thing is I love it. I just have to tell you that story because I was the person many of you were betting on wouldn't stay sober. I see some people, 30 years later, they go, "Wow, you're still sober." I go, "Yeah." And I want to tell you why I know that that's true. Also on page 34, there's this other thing. For those who are unable to drink moderately, the question is how to stop altogether. We are assuming, of course, that the reader desires to stop. Whether such a person can quit on a non-spiritual basis depends upon the extent to which she has already lost the power to choose. And this great thing that I was taught here in Alcoholics Anonymous is it doesn't matter how much, it doesn't matter how little. It's this, powerlessness and resentment and lack of connection that actually mean that I'm an alcoholic or not, right? That I drink beyond my mental control, that I have a phenomenon of craving, and that I have this spiritual malady, this lack of connection. Can't seem to connect with anything or anyone, including myself, if in fact it would help me have a better way of living. I can't seem to choose to not do it. Because I'm trying so hard to blot out the misery of my existence as best I can, because I think I'm the only one who suffers. I don't know that I think that, but that's actually what I think. And so the beautiful thing about Alcoholics Anonymous is this woman comes up to me, tells me that she's been waiting for me, that you all love me. I treat her horribly. And guess what she does? She calls me the next day and says, "I'm coming to get you to take you to a meeting." Like, isn't that great? Right? And called me the next day and said to me, hey, here's a broom. What we do is we sweep up here. We'd like for you to be the greeter. I would snarl at people when they came in and stand with my arms folded. I remember when you guys made me the cake lady, and the cakes were right in the middle of right at the beginning of the meeting, and I was supposed to be there. This was Try God Friday night when the meeting started at 8:30, and I would show up at 8:28, and the secretary would just be the color of my shirt, fuming, and I'd stick the candles on there, light them up, and every single commitment was a socialization. The beauty of Alcoholics Anonymous is that I come in as I, and everything is about we. And then I have this relationship with this person who becomes my sponsor, and that we of discussing my life, those first 5 proposals, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and then we get to step 5, right? That they are actually socializing me, warming me up, bringing me back into connection with this we that's going to be myself and a God of my understanding. Right? The process of Alcoholics Anonymous is so subtle and so beautiful. And you can put $1 or $5 or $25 in the basket or not. Do you know? The only thing that we have to keep doing is showing up and doing the best of our ability. And this notion of help me to see the movie of my mind, that is so great. The steps have to get me to see the campaign that I'm on to make everybody pay from this list of resentment. And I have to be able to write these resentments out and share them with another human being, the exact nature of my wrongs, and it's not that folks haven't wronged me. It's not that life doesn't do you cold sometimes. That's not what the book is saying. The book is saying you're not alone in that, but kind of how you're thinking about that, Sid, is what's hurting you. What you're doing about that is what's hurting you, and can I see that my ultimate thing here is everything that I think has happened to me, the worst things that I have in account, that inventory, the unsaleable goods, I hope you have found, are the things that get you the love the most here in Alcoholics Anonymous. Not because we love people who are broken and messed up. We do for a time, but that's exactly what allows you to be of maximum service to others, because there's nothing I've gone through here in Alcoholics Anonymous alone. There's always someone else who's had that hurt, that pain, that suffering, that heartache, that dream deferred or completely shattered. And how do I move on from that? So what's my life like today? Yeah, you all have been here, haven't you, the last year? It's like, Jesus, whoa. And now they say they want to open everything up. God, I'm scared. And I don't mean like scared. I'm just like scared. It's like you've been so tight and so defensive I have been so tight. I have been so defensive on the physical body for so long that, I have to do a little bit more prayer and meditation. I have to ask God into every single transaction. Everybody in my household, we had the miracle of being vaccinated. But I just went over to my mom's house today. She's 89, and I'm about to put on my mask. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. I think it's okay. Right. And so just living with this pressure, it is something to take some more time out for steps, 10, 11, and 12, right? Particularly 11. Life is good. I have this job that, was supposed to be my dream job, and it's disappointing. It's not exactly what I thought. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for who and what you're asking me to show up as. I didn't know that I could be someone who would not be able to get what she wants, but who could still show up, be effective, kind, loving, sincere. There's a thing written in my book, Bob Olson told me this too. He said, Sydney, be sensible, tactful, considerate, and humble. It's right there in my book. You can't see that. But, like the embodiment of these steps, have helped me weather life in all of its kind of manifestations. I woke up this morning with a partner, he's 27 years sober, and just the last 3 days have been an absolute miracle. And it's just the way we live, just this simple life. That both of us know how grateful we are and how lucky we are. That, the fact that we're both sober, it's just such a gift. Just going to Trader Joe's and paying the bills, but we were talking this morning as we were kind of laying out in the sun, just chilling for a little bit. And, I said to him, or he said to me, what the coolest thing about today is, as two alcoholics, one of us said, what? That we're absolutely current. The beauty of being current, nobody's in the past, nobody's tripping about the future. You're right in the present moment with the person right here, right now. That is what Alcoholics Anonymous promises, that you can be absolutely free to be fully alive in this moment. That, when I was snarling at people in my first couple of years, I don't know if I told you my sobriety date, but it's January 12th, 1985. And so it's been a couple of one days at a time, and it's been a couple of seasons of this thing. And the practice itself, of getting up in the morning, and maybe even, I know that Shelley always says that, your morning actually starts in the evening, when you're doing that nightly review. What did I pack into the stream of life today? How did I show up? Did I help anyone? Do I owe an amends? What did I do today? And it's not so much about beating myself up with the lens of, I'm messing up, but it's still that taking inventory. Let's just look because we're strong enough. Let's just look because we've got a loving God in our life. Let's just look because we know we're no longer particularly special. Let's just look because what it means to be free, truly free without drugs and alcohol, is so much better than my best day high. At least for me, it is. So here's the discipline. How did I do out there today? Some people write it, some people think it. All of that is up to you to decide, My partner is so diligent, every single night he does his nightly review. And I think to myself, wow, he's writing that down. And I'm in my, PJs or less, jumping in the bed, sitting there going, all right. Oh, yeah, why did I say that? Let me call in the morning. I don't know if that landed with them. That seems like something I might want to revisit tomorrow. Or, Doug, how you did that, sis? That was pretty cool. God, thanks for giving me the ability to show up that way. Wow, can't believe that I actually was able to be of service in that manner. Wow, oh, grateful for this, grateful that, in this body that's healthy. And let me pray for everybody else out there right now, because there's a lot of suffering. Turn on over, right? Call it a day and watch what happens in the morning. In the morning, do I start my day with quiet time with God, and however you do that. It's so cool to find some quiet in the morning and to set up what's happening today. And more than that, to listen to the sounds of the world and offer compassion, to sit there and actually know that the most important thing I can do is shut up. Sit down or walk or stand, however you do it, but just offer the humility of not knowing and asking, whatever you need of me today, let me show up and be that. Not for myself anymore, because see, I've been overpaid. I remember, I was 19 years old when I got sober, and I have to let you know, I just didn't have a schema. Once I hit 25, I was never really supposed to make it past 19. And so as I got older and as my knees are going out and menopause and body is changing and, health and all of the things that come with a grown woman's life, it's don't know mind. I don't know. But the beauty of it is, and I don't mean I don't know because I'm dumb. I don't mean I don't know I'm afraid. I mean, I don't know, like, this is what freedom looks like. Let's step in and let it be known as we go along. I don't have to have the answers for everyone. I can let the answers still come to me. And I believe for me, you guys, that is what helps me stay useful and effective. To not have the answers. I try to keep nimbleness and agility in my mind and in my life. I have this big job and I'm supposed to be directing all these people and having all these answers for this huge monster of an organization. And I find I'm most effective when I listen to everything and everybody and go, let's take a pause. There's a big question. These are some really challenging times right now. Do we really know? Let's see. Right? And the funny thing about that is I thought when I got here that it would feel and look different. Anybody know that one? When I got to where my life is today, I thought it would feel and look different. And what I know is that gratitude is the single most important, gratitude and patience. What do they say? That our principles are patience, kindness, tolerance, right? Like really understanding what those mean and feeling them in the body, particularly when everything is wrong, particularly when they're calling you out your name, particularly when they're accusing you of something you didn't do, like in those times, and constantly showing up with this attitude of, okay, God, you have given me so much. Show me what I can do here for you. I was locked up with some pain at work, and there has been some pretty unkind stuff going on. And, I'm coming home talking to this beloved partner of mine, and, he's so much more cheery than I am, you guys. For those of you who know us, he wakes up in the morning, happy and smiling and, just dancing all around the house, and deep in my life, I'm like, oh, don't you know we're dying? They're going to kill us. Everything is, like I can just kind of have this dark thing, because that's just who I am. I stayed alive by staying defended and constantly scanning and scanning and scanning and watching, and it's such a cool thing to have someone who's so open-hearted and so playful and so forgiving and so warm. And we do learn from each other. And so as I was going through this tough thing at work, and this person who's been really unkind and causing a lot of trouble, I thought about Miles and how he would handle it. But I also thought about the huge lesson that all of you have taught me, And when I wrote that inventory, you guys remember when you wrote that inventory, you wrote out your grudge list, you shared it with another human being, you're in step 5, and all of a sudden this story, right? The movie in my mind gets turned to show me that, oh, actually, I've put everybody in this movie. It's called The Theater of the Lie, that I have these ideas that are kind of stuck. I keep seeing the world through the same lens. And so that's why in step 8, when I'm really going to pray and I'm really getting ready to go out here and make amends, I have this sincere prayer where I say, God, can you help me see this from an entirely different angle? And so this practice that happens in steps 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, they're such beautiful practices because when I get to steps 10, 11, and 12, and I'm out of that, I'm actually still doing that every day in my life, if I'm really honest with myself. And so I was sitting, on a nightly review and in a morning upon awakening time, thinking of this situation at work. And really trying to find out not how can I get past it, but how can I live with it if it never changes? How can I find a way to bring God in if it never changes? What are my options? Right? And how can I get softer and more feminine and more reliant on God if it never changes? And I, was sitting there and doing some writing, and the voice or the intuitive whatever said, hey, you remember how hurt you were? How badly you treated people because you were so hurt? Do you remember how harsh and cruel sometimes you were, driven by 100 forms of fear? Do you remember how brittle and how hard and how small and dry your heart was? Absolutely, run by those 4 Norsemen: terror, bewilderment, frustration, and fear. You know how this person is feeling. There's nothing else I have to teach you anymore, Sydney. There's nothing else I have to show you. But what you could do for me to prove to me that all my lessons I've taught you, you really did get. Can you just send compassion? Can you just work with them as they are? Can you not give up hope that they too can recover from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body? There comes a time in Alcoholics Anonymous for me that I'm actually no longer here to get. But I need to wake up to that. That's a movie in my mind that has to change too. A movie in my mind has to change, and may it be so with you tonight. There's so much more right with you than there's wrong. Your worst days are actually behind you. The worst of who you are is behind you. The best of who you are yet to be is right here and moving forward from today. The magnitude of the miracle of the healing that this program is yours. It's right here. It's right here, right now, as I'm looking at you on all these squares with your beloveds and all of these screens say, like, we're already in our miracle. Safe, sound, healthy as we can be. I'm here already. Like, if I died today, I want to shout it from the fucking rooftops. Yeah, I was here, fully alive and engaged, no matter what you all think about it, though I know you know and understand. But who I'm trying to be today is such the blessing. Not even if I get there, but what's guiding me. What I'm trying to be, who I'm trying to be, and who I'm trying to serve. And that has brought a different movie in my mind. And for me, it has really made the grace of God as real as my partner, as real as some of your faces who I've known and you've shared your lives with me. Like, the grace of God isn't some state of mind for other people. Like, it's right here, I've really been trying to cultivate more patience. And patience not in terms of like steadfast and suffering, but patience that absolutely knows, like I know the color of my eyes, that things will get better. They will change. That God loves all of us. Those who are shooting and killing people, those who are being shot at, those who are being denied, and all that you can imagine. And that, those days when I'm not on top of my best game and get another shot to be better, not the next day, but the moment that I ask God, whoa, can you come into my life and mine right now and make me a better version of myself? That I can be patient with myself. And the more patience that I grow in this practice called Alcoholics Anonymous and steps 10, 11, and 12, and revisiting 1 and 6 with other people, or revisiting sometimes, have you ever just pulled out your list of character defects and just read over them? Man, it's such a cool thing to do. You remember the ones that you thought you were never going to get free of, and now they just don't have any grip. They've been totally cast out. Like, just to remember the miracle of transformation that's just right here. So that when I see all the rest of you, I can go, "Ooh, I know you got it. Ooh, Amanda, I know you got it. Ooh, Jackie. Ooh, Philo. Ooh, right?" And that this is a program that never, ever stops. If it's on Zoom, if it's in a hybrid, if we meeting outside in parking lots and tents rather than inside, it was so divinely inspired from the beginning that it has the resiliency to keep meeting me wherever I'm at. I don't know if you understand that one, but I am amazed. And that somehow enlivens me to keep going deeper, to keep letting go more. The old timers, wasn't it Alabama or somebody, they used to always talk about that onion. We just keep taking the layers, off of the onion. I had another woman who helped me through the steps in some of the most painful time in my life. And she would say, "Sydney, it's like gold. You put it in the hottest fire, and that dross, those impurities that keep coming to the top, you just skim them off. And you leave that fire hot, and you just skim them off." Right? And this is what makes the purest, most valuable gold. And you guys know that we have that line in our book, right? That we hit the mother lode. We hit the mother lode and we mine this thing, and I love it, not to keep it, but to give every single bit of it away. Right? Like, this is the beauty of Alcoholics Anonymous. To me, it is a program of true freedom. Freedom from the bondage of self, freedom from drugs and alcohol, freedom from the movie that can really be more like a horror story, of your mind, freedom from the story of whatever it is that feels too small. I used to say that my life was as big as a postage stamp. And then when I came to you, I used to say it felt like I was getting through life. I have a size 9 and you guys were making me wear a size 7.5. And I'm standing here right now speaking to you completely barefoot, right? Fully alive, absolutely knowing how good I have it, knowing that, I can't make up for lost time, but I can try to, make the best of the time that I have left. And that can be in this next moment, right? And that for anyone, who is with us. I remember when I was a kid, I'll close with this. You guys remember that song, "Love the One You're With"? Right? I used to think they was talking about like you trying to love on somebody else, but you can't be there, so you might as well get with this person right here. And I realized that's not exactly what they mean. It's like life is right here, right now. Be with the one you're with. See the truth of life and God in skin right in front of you, and rejoice that we are together, that we are sober, that we are alive, and that we have each other. So, Philo, thanks for having me.